All right, let's pick up where we left off, which is on page 95 if you're following along in the book. We're going to do the next shape, which is polygons, and they're nested in that same family of the rectangle tool, the ellipse. We see polygon. So go ahead and select the polygon tool and bring your cursor out to your artboard. So the polygon tool creates shapes with multiple straight sides, and by default it's going to make a hexagon, a 6-shaped side. By default, all shapes are drawn from the center out. So how we get it to make a shape with more or less sides is a keyboard shortcut while we're dragging, and we're going to use the arrow up and down on our keyboard. So to get it to make a triangle, you're starting at a 6-sider, you're going to down, down, down until you get to a 3-sider. So we're going to start by, first thing we're going to do is turn off our smart guides just for a minute, because those kind of get awkward when you're doing polygons. So remember, under the view menu, you can go and look and see if there's a check mark here, and there is. So Command U or just uncheck it will turn them off temporarily. So we're going to turn off our smart guides, and we're going to start with our cursor with the polygon tool, and we're going to start dragging down and to the right. Remember, it's from the center out. Don't let go of your mouse yet. We're going to hit the down arrow key once to turn it into a 5-sided shape. Don't let go of your mouse yet either. And we also want to straighten it out. So right now it's kind of crooked. To get it to straighten out, you hold the Shift key. Notice how that when you hold and let go of the Shift key, it straightens it or goes back to kind of wonky. So hold the Shift key to straighten it out. And we're going to now, in a sort of opposite way, we're going to let go of our mouse button first, then our Shift key. That way it keeps it straight. So we made a 5-sided polygon that had that bottom line level using the Shift key. We didn't see any measurement tools because we have turned off the smart guides. And by default, it's going to draw polygons with a white fill and a black stroke. So no matter what we previously had going on, you can tell that it's black and white, except for yours. Did you fill it? No?
Mine's filled too.
Really?
Yeah, mine too.
Okay, well, doesn't matter because we're going to change it anyway. That's surprising, but it doesn't matter. All right. We're going to click on the fill color box, and we're going to choose the version of gray that's 30% black. So use your, just hover over it until you find the one that's 00030. And this doesn't appear to have a stroke. We're going to turn off the stroke. So click on the stroke thumbnail and click on that first one, the white with the red slash through it. All right, now we want to turn our smart guides back on. So Command U is the shortcut. That'll turn them back on for us. And with our polygon tool still as our selected tool over here in the toolbar, and with this shape still selected, I want you to notice that on this bounding box, there's something new that we haven't seen before. There's all the squares that are the normal bounds. Zoom in on that. But there's now a triangle over here, or a diamond shape, halfway between this top and center point. And if we hover over it, we see a plus or minus. All right. We're going to drag this side widget up or down to get more sides. Come on, work with me here. There we go. So a 4-sided is a square, a 3-sided is a triangle. So drag it up so that it's a triangle, just 3 sides. That's another way of doing it. So while we're drawing it, we could have arrowed down until we were only at 3 sides, and we could have drawn a triangle straight out of the gate. Or we could draw any shape and then use that widget and either add or remove sides of our polygon. All right, we're going to drag one of the corner bounding points until we see a certain width or size. So right now we have a perfect triangle. We're going to make a little bit more squatty triangle. So grab any one of those corner bound boxes and drag it out to a width of 1.2 and a height of 0.8. about. Okay, I'm going to use this same tool, and I'm going to use that center point to just move it down a little bit because mine was nearly off the artboard. So I moved it a little using that center point inside the triangle. All right, what we're actually going to build here is a diamond. So we're going to use this shape to build the bottom half of our diamond. So with our triangle still selected, we're going to use the menus up at the top that say Object. So we're going to choose Object, Transform, which is the first one, and we have lots of options. Move, Rotate, Reflect, Scale, and Shear. We're going to choose Reflect. Now don't click anything too fast. Hold on here. We can reflect it horizontally or vertically. We can tell it what angle to reflect, and we can either reflect it or we can make a copy. So let's turn on the preview button, which is down here at the bottom. Check that on, and we want to reflect it horizontal, so click on that. And notice what it did was it just flipped it for us. It didn't make a copy of it. What we want to do is actually make a copy, so we need to hit the copy button down here. And once again, I have mine all skewed. I don't get this at all. Oh, this is annoying. So that's what you should have. Not only did it reflect it horizontally, it made a copy of it. It just didn't tip the one, it made a brand new copy and made that copy be the horizontal flip. All right, drag that new top triangle using that center widget until its top edge snaps to the bottom edge of the previous one. So we're going to take this, drag it down here, and snap them together, which mine is just going to be miserable because it's not level. Ugh. There we go. Wow. I'm having all sorts of fun today. Hopefully yours snapped quite nicely. Nope, they aren't. They weren't. Come on. They still are misbehaving. Huh. Oh, gosh. Oh, I know what I did. I know what I did. I don't want it to snap to a point there. All right, so we should have a diamond shape like this right now. Take the selection tool, the black arrow, and select that top diamond, the first one that we did. And what we're going to do is, to make this into a diamond shape, we're going to give it a flat top up here. So we're going to use the eraser tool, and we're going to drag a line right through the middle to cut this into two pieces. And then we're ultimately going to delete the top piece. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but the way that they're having us do is with the eraser tool. So go over to your tools. The eraser tool is about halfway down. It's two tools under the letter T, so click on the eraser tool. Bring your cursor over and position it about, I don't know, a third of the way up from the bottom of this triangle off the left side of the triangle. And we're going to drag across the shape to the right, but we're going to hold shift while we do because it's going to keep our line perfectly straight. So as you start dragging to the right with the eraser, hold the shift key. What on earth? Oh, I just want to cry. Yours should be perfectly straight. It's like my whole thing is screwed up here today. So there we go. Make a cut like that. Once you let go of your cursor, it cut it into two separate shapes. There's a top triangle and then there's that bottom weird shape now. Take your selection tool and select just this top triangle piece and then delete it out of your artwork. So you can hit the delete key on your keyboard. Click away to ungroup them, to deselect, and then you can go back in and just click one piece, and then hit delete on the keyboard. Yep. Whatever's going on with my computer today, the fact that I'm drawing all my shapes at a slight angle and I'm not snapping to the grid has my diamond looking wonky compared to yours, but they should be lined up perfectly. I can't even nudge it and get it to behave, so I don't know.
Is the perspective grid on?
Better not be. I mean, it would show up much different if it were. I don't know. Okay. Where did we leave off? We did that, did that. Okay, click to select this weird remaining part of your top triangle, and we're going to fill it with a version of gray that is a 5%, so a lot lighter. All right. The next thing we're going to do is make a copy of that first triangle to make a mountain shape with a rounded edge. So we're going to take our selection tool and we're going to click on this darker triangle to select it, so that bottom piece, the one that we first drew. And to make a copy of any shape, once you have it selected on your artboard, you can drag away from it while holding the Option key, or it's Alt on a PC. So if you Option drag away, you make a copy of the shape that you had selected. So do that. Then we're going to go back to our Transform panel and we're going to click on the More Options. And instead of being a squatty triangle, we want it to go back to the equal side triangle, and there's actually a button for that right here that says Make All the Sides Equal. So click on that and it's going to return it to an equal-sided triangle for us. All right, we're going to take the Direct Selection tool, the white arrow, and we're going to click on the top corner widget to select that one in our triangle. So click on that top one. That's going to select just that top anchor point. And we're going to drag it down towards the center to round that top corner a little bit. And then we're going to click away to deselect. So now we made like a little rounded mountain. All right, let's file save, Command S. And the next thing we're going to do is make a star. The star is going to require you to, yep. The direct selection tool, because you're selecting all of them with that piece. Yep, so just undo and use the direct selection tool to just pick that one anchor point. Yep. So the next shape we're going to make is a star, and the star requires lots of fingers on the keyboard. That one, just that one, select it first. Oh, try that. Yep.
Still click it.
Oddly enough, it must. I would think it would act that way, but you should select the point first and then do something to it. Yep. Okay, we ready to make stars? Find an area on your artboard where you can make a star, and let's go and pick the star tool out of our drawing shapes. And again, we're going to have to use lots of different keyboard shortcuts, so don't let go of your mouse until I tell you to do it. A star doesn't create live shapes, so we're not going to get those little bullseyes in there where we can go back and modify it. So that's, right now, it's the only one that doesn't. As we're dragging out our star, using the arrows on our keyboard is going to add or take away points on our star. So we can go from a 5-pointed star to a 6, 8, whatever, by going up and down on our, using the arrows. As we hold the Shift key while we're dragging, it's going to constrain the proportions and straighten it out. And as we hold Command, it's going to make the center of the star stay at a size, and as we drag out, our pointers of the star are going to get longer and skinnier versus the whole star getting bigger as we drag. So arrows, Shift, and Command are all going to come into play on this one. All right. With the star tool, we're going to start dragging slowly to make a star. So there we have it. It's 1, 2, 5 points. Don't let go of your mouse, ever, until I tell you. However, make sure our smart guides are on because we need to see a measurement, and they are. View smart guides. Can I ask you guys to go to the view menu and tell me what, if any, of these you have checked? Show grid, snap to grid, snap to pixel? Point is the one that you all have?
Yeah.
Turn that one off. Turn that one off. All right. So start drawing out your star. You're going to get your tool tip. Have it be about 1 inch. Don't let go of anything. All right. Press the up arrow once to add a point to our star. And we could add even more if we wanted to, but now we have a 6-pointed star. Now we're going to press Command, and we're going to continue dragging out to 1.5 inch. Notice how that center stayed, but we're getting longer rays. So drag it out to be about a 1.5. Release command, do not release your mouse yet. Now hold down the Shift key, and that's going to straighten your star. It's not going to be at an angle anymore. And now when it's straight and we're happy where we have it, we actually release in the opposite direction that we would think. We let go of the mouse, then our shift, because we wanted it to stay straight. The minute we let go of the shift, it gets crooked again. So in our appearance panel, let's make sure that we have no stroke on our star. And our fill color, we're going to change to white, which is the 3rd swatch over. Now, we're on a white artboard, so while it's selected, it's easy to find it, right? But the minute we click away from it, it's going to basically disappear. So the way we can find it later is that outline view. Do you guys remember that, where we looked and just saw the dot to dots? We can always find it that way. So there's our first star. We're actually going to shrink it down a little. We got it how we like it, but it's too big. So we're going to use our selection tool. That's going to select our whole star shape and put a bounding box around it. And we're going to proportionately make it smaller. So whenever we hold Shift as we're dragging on a corner bounding box, we make it proportionately smaller. And we're going to bring it down to a 0.4. So grab any one of the bounding boxes, start dragging, hold Shift, and bring it down to a 0.4 approximately, either one of them in dimension. Good enough. And mine is half off of the artboard, so I can actually see it on the gray. If it's all on the artboard, I'll move it to be all on the artboard. The minute I click away, it's going to be hard to find. All right, select the star tool again and bring your cursor out onto the artboard. And we're going to draw one a little bit smaller than that first one. So go ahead and click and draw one out. And it's going to have the same behavior as the one you last drew. So it's going to have the same amount of points, and it's going to have the same amount of length on those arms as your other one did. So go ahead and draw out a second smaller star. Then we're going to take our selection tool, and we're going to drag that star and the other one onto our diamond so that it looks all shiny and pretty. So there's the first one. That's easy to do because it's still highlighted. It should be filled with white. But now if we can't find our first star, Command letter Y is outline mode. Now we can easily see that second star. We can select it and drag it onto our diamond as well. And then Command Y is a toggle that's going to bring you back to your regular view. So we have 2 white stars placed on top of our diamond. Yep. Yeah, grab it by a bounding box as you drag, like this. How do I say this? There is no fill, so there's nothing to grab on the inside. Okay. So either be on one of the lines or, yeah, be like that. Now you should be able to drag it. Yeah. Whenever there's no fill on something like our stars, if you click and drag on the inside, nothing exists. It doesn't know what to grab. So you kind of have to click and drag on the shape itself, on the stroke itself. I forget that this board is alive. How much I can really do up here. More than I thought. Look at that. All right, so we now have our stars on our diamond. We are going to select, so that's 4 different pieces of art that we want to behave as one. So we're going to take our selection tool and we're going to click and drag a marquee over those pieces to select all of them. And then we're going to hit that group button at the bottom of our property panel. There's still individuals that we can ungroup and edit, but for now, when we click on one, we're going to move them all as a unit. Whoops. So if I select one of these, I'm actually moving the whole shebang. Okay, so we group together our diamond. All good? All right, just going to clear up some space here. Let's do a save. Command S. Lines, drawing line segments, which are paths also, they just happen to be open paths. So when we draw a line, we're not connecting it back to itself, it's an open path. Nested in our star tool, rectangle tool, whatnot, is our line segment tool. There it is at the bottom, so go ahead and choose that and bring your cursor out to your artboard. And we're going to drag a line until it's about 1.5 inches in length, and don't worry if it's level or going uphill or whatever. So drag out a line that's 1.5 inches approximately. And what we see is our 2 anchor points and the line connecting them. With the line selected, we're going to hover just off of one of those anchor points until we get our 2-sided arrow again. And we're going to click and drag down until we're at 0% so we know that it's a level line. In order to draw a straight line from the get-go, you could have also held the Shift key, because Shift keeps things straight and level. This is just another way of doing it. We're going to change the weight of this line. So we're going to come over to our appearance panel and we're going to change our stroke to be 15. And then in the color box, we're going to tell it to be the version of gray that is 10%. So we have a line with a 15-point stroke on it, and because strokes are centered equally above and below paths, we have half of it above, half of it below, but it's just a line. What we can do, and what we're going to do next, is we're going to convert that actually into a shape, into a rectangle. Instead of just being a skinny line, there's no fill on this. It's just a line with a stroke. We're going to turn it into a shape and let it be a rectangle with a gray fill and no stroke. We're going to change that next. So, where are we? We're going to choose, with it selected, instead of being a line, we're going to say Object, and then we're going to go down to Path, and we're going to say outline the stroke. And now, what does it look like? Object, path, outline, stroke. Now it's just a shape, right? It's a boring old rectangle. With a fill, if we look over here, it now has a gray fill and no stroke. That 15-point stroke doesn't exist. All right. We're now going to take our selection tool and we're going to click on this gray circle that we made earlier, and in the center dot we're going to move it over to the top left corner so that the center intersects with the top left corner of our shape. And we're going to copy and paste it 3 times, so we have 3 more versions to use. So we're going to go Edit, Copy, Command C, and then we're going to do an Edit, Paste, which is Command V once. Notice it's in the middle of my artboard. We're going to Command V again, and we're going to Command V again. We now have 3 circles stacked up here in the center. One by one, we're going to click and drag and move them into the other 4 corners of our rectangle. Essentially, we're making like a dog bone. So we're going to take all 4 of those and put them something like that. So we did a copy and paste that circle 3 times, and then we moved them to make a dog bone. Now we have 5 pieces, We want to group them together, so we're going to take our selection tool, we're going to marquee select them all, and we're going to click on the group button at the bottom of our panel in quick actions. So now they behave as one unit. Go ahead and select, if it isn't already, that group, all 5 pieces with a bounding box around the edge. And we're going to go to one of the corners till we get the top right corner till we get the double arrow, and we're going to drag it to a 45-degree angle. Yep.
I cannot move anything. Stop.
Are you in your selection tool?
I changed, I guess. Alright.
Yeah.
There was some weird tool.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell what tool was highlighted, to be honest, but I could tell that the selection wasn't.
Alright, thank you.
Yep. So once you've grouped all 5 pieces together, go to that top corner and angle it so that we're at a 45-degree angle. Now we're going to make like a cross thing, cross skull bones, whatever. So we're going to do just like we did with the red X. We're going to reflect it, but reflect a copy of it so we keep the original. So under the Object menu, we're going to choose Object, Transform, Reflect. And because we haven't hit copy yet, I have my preview button on so we see a preview of what it's going to do. If I say OK, it's just going to take the one I did and reflect it. But if I hit copy, oh, also let's change it to vertical, not horizontal. It doesn't look much different, but we need to change it to a vertical axis and then click copy. All right, now we want to drag across the artwork for all of these bones and group them so they act as one unit. Drag across and hit the group button in your quick actions. Okay, we got that done. I'm going to take this shape and just slightly move it so I can have a little bit more workspace in my artboard. And then click to deselect so you have nothing selected. All right, the next tool I'm going to show you is the Shaper tool, and it's actually pretty darn cool. The Shaper tool recognizes natural gestures. So if you happen to have a touch screen on your laptop, or you're working with this on an iPad or something like that, or your phone, how we're used to zooming in and out, it behaves much the same way. So when we pinch and zoom, it can get smaller, we can twist things, we can build things by touch.
Every time I try to copy my circle, and then when I move it, just the whole thing slides over.
Okay, hold on. The Shaper tool is the one that we need to use next. And in this last version of Illustrator, the updates, not every tool exists in the toolbar or nested like it used to. So they now have these 3 dots down here at the bottom. And depending on, when I did this at home, I already had the Shaper tool active. I didn't need to go find it, but I don't, on a quick glance, see it here. So let's go to these 3 dots here at the bottom, and that's going to show us any tool that's grayed out is already in our toolbar. If it's not grayed out, it's something that we can still add. So what we need to find in here, in our drawing tools, is the thing called the Shaper tool. So it looks like a circle with a pen next to it, basically. We're going to drag that onto our tool panel somewhere to bring it back to the live tool panel. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it and I'm going to put it up here somewhere. If you get a box around a tool, it's going to nest it in that tool. If you get a flat blue line, it's going to put it between those 2 tools. So I'm going to let go, and now my Shaper tool is right here. Okay, and then hit Escape to close out that window. This is kind of weird to me that they didn't act, that all the tools aren't where they always were. I don't understand why they did this. But I guess the cool part is you could customize the toolbar the way you want it and then set up your own workspace as well. So Shaper tool, this is what it looks like. A circle-ish blob with a pencil next to it. Click on that. That's going to be our tool of choice, and bring your cursor out into your artboard. And pretend you're doing this with touch. So on a touch screen, either with your stylus, like if you have the pencil for the iPad, or with your finger, you're going to draw out a rectangle, right? Well, watch this. I'm going to draw out a rectangle, sloppy, messy. Look what it does. Yeah. Ooh. So everybody draw something and say, ooh. Using the shaper tool, it's going to take whatever shape you're kind of making. Try to make a circle.
Oh.
That's pretty bad. It's going to guess what it is that you want made. Now to delete it, this is pretty cool too. On your iPad, you might take your finger and just kind of go, scribble over it. Like, I don't want you anymore. So what you can do with this is start outside of the shape and go scribble, scribble, scribble. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Sometimes when you scribble, it thinks you're making a line and it draws a line for you. So you got to be pretty scribbly with your scribble. It's a very technical term. So draw a shape, scribble it out. Try to draw yourself an ellipse. Not so much an ellipse. There we go. That's an ellipse. Make an ellipse, and we're going to turn that into a circle after the fact. We're going to take one of, let's see here. With your shaper tool, click on this ellipse to select it. So we get a bounding box around it. And we're going to take one of these corners and we're going to come down and over. And if our smart guides are on, eventually we're going to see a magenta. Come on, where are you? A perfect circle. Maybe my smart guides are off again. It should tell you when you hit the perfect circle point.
We'll get like the magenta crosshairs.
Yeah, the magenta crosshairs is what you should have seen. Yep. You need to take this to your tool panel to make it active. So drag it up into your tool panel and wait till you get a line in between. There you go. Now you can use it. Yep. And then if you hit escape, that extra panel will disappear. So once you've drawn with the shaper tool, you can click on the shape to get the bounding box still with the shaper tool and move it around to create other shapes. Okay, does everybody have a circle drawn? If not, let's use the shaper tool and make one. And we're going to see how we can combine shapes using this tool and punch out shapes, which is pretty cool. We're going to make a copy of, first of all, I'm going to use the move tool and I'm going to move the circle that I made down a little bit so that I have room to make another circle next to it. So I have some building room to the right. So if you don't have building room to the right of your circle, make it a little smaller or drag it somewhere on your artboard where you have some room. Go back to the shaper tool and we're going to make a copy of this exact circle. So remember, Option drag does that, but to also keep it perfectly level with our circle and not go up or down, we're going to hold down the Shift key to constrain that. So as we start dragging from this, we're going to hold Shift and Option, and we're going to pull it off to the right a little bit so they're not touching. That's going to make a perfect copy in the same horizontal level. Put some room between them. We need to put a shape between them. So you have to have a little bit of a gap between the two, like that.
Mine isn't making a duplicate.
Hold Option and Shift when you drag to the right.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Option is the key, is the modifier that makes a copy. Shift is the modifier that keeps it level and doesn't let it go up or down when you're dragging. All right. We need to now get the rectangle tool. So the last tool we used was the line segment tool. So we need to hold down that arrow so that we can see our other tools underneath, and we need to grab the rectangle tool. We are going to hover over the top center of our original circle, and when we get to that perfect point, it should say anchor. That's where the dot to dot is for the top of that circle. From there, we're going to Shift drag down to the left and down to make a square that connects, oh, for crying out loud, and mine's at an angle, until we connect to the bottom anchor point again. And I have to make mine level again. There we go. Oh, for crying out loud. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. So it should look something like that, minus the fact that mine has weird angles and blobs going on. You basically made a rectangle or a square connecting your two circles. So it's now like an oval or a pill shape. Okay, these are all using the shaper tool. We currently have two circles and a square or a rectangle building all of this. With your shaper tool, go back to that, not the rectangle tool. Switch back to the shaper tool and click a blank area in your artboard to deselect everything. Okay, we're now going to punch out, remember this is a circle right here? We're going to punch out that circle. So we're going to go outside of this left circle in our white area, and we're going to start doing that squiggly thing. And when you squiggle, I'll do that again, outside into the shape and then all the way over, because you can see that my circle goes beyond that shape, it removes it. So we've now made this half shape. Now we want to combine these two shapes. So we're going to start inside the circle and we're going to scribble to the left. So I'm going to go like this, and that's going to combine those two. Again, mine looks stupid. You probably don't have that bump. So if you start outside the shape and scribble in, it removes it. If you stay inside the shape and go into another shape, it combines them. So that second time you do it, start inside the gray and scribble over to the left. Okay? So you actually took it out. There you go. Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yep, you took it out.
Okay.
If you're outside when you start scribbling, it's going to delete. So you're going to start here, and you're going to scribble over all the way into the square. Yep. You went, okay, you went a smidge too far because just go from here to here in the gray. Don't go into the white.
Do I want to keep going into
Yep.
this one? Okay.
Perfect. Now you're in the two shapes. See how that worked?
Yep.
You went from
Okay.
that shape to that shape. Yeah, your scribble has to start inside the circle and finish inside the square for it to combine the two. If you're outside of a shape and scribble into it, it's going to delete it. Move your cursor, still using the shaper tool, over this, and notice all the shapes that exist are still there, right? It still shows your circles and your square that existed in the first point. We're going to click on this with our shaper tool, and that's going to select all of them and put a widget at our fingertips. So once again, we have a box up here that allows us to do something. We're going to click on that arrow widget on the right side, and that's going to put us into construction mode. We have that dotted line around it, but you can see all three pieces, two circles and a square, are available. So all of these shapes remain editable right now, so we can change the final shape of our blob. All right, the circle on the left is what we want to select now. So the only part of it that we can see is the stroke that's left on this right-hand side of it. The rest of it's gone. So we're going to click on that stroke, and that's going to select that circle on the left. We're going to drag the middle right bounding point, this one, to the left a little bit, but while we're dragging, we're going to hold down the Option key, and that's going to constrain it to pull in from both sides. So do you see how my circle is going into more of a ellipse shape? I'm holding down the Option key. We're just going to make it a little bit less rounded, if you will. Let go of your cursor, let go of your command button, and now we change the shape. All three of those shapes are completely editable in the shaper group. Hit the Escape key. That gets you out of that construction mode. And now we're going to fill this. So we're going to go to our fill button, and we're going to choose a different fill. We're going to go with a really light one, the 5%. And we're going to take off our stroke. So we're going to either click on the stroke thumbnail and say no stroke, or we could have clicked that down to 0, either way. Then going to take our selection tool, We're going to select the sail and we're going to drag it down onto our sailboat thing down here. Let's marquee all of those pieces to make our sailboat one big group. So group those together. And then do a file save. All right, what we've done in that part of the exercise was we used shapes and we built all these different things that we're going to put on a treasure map. The X marks the spot, and the bones, and the mountains, and the diamonds, and whatever. Now we're going to work on the other side of the artboard, the actual, the postcard itself. So switch back using your arrows at the bottom or Artboard 1, clicking on the drop-down box and choosing Artboard 1. Command 0 to make sure Artboard 1 is fit in the window. We're going to go get a file from the book and we're going to place it in this artboard. So we're going to do a file, and we're not going to open it. We're going to do something called place. So file, place, and then we need to navigate to our Lesson 3 folder for the book files. And we need to find the file called Island PNG, Island Ping. Does anybody know what a ping file is or where you've seen them in use? They're used on the web. They're pixel-based. They're not a vector. They're a bunch of squares that together have a continuous tone, kind of like a photo. Pings are better than a JPEG for a lot of things, but it's still a raster image. It's still something for use on the web with pixels. So we're going to take that. We're going to leave all of these options at their default behavior, which is to link to this, and we're going to say place. Now our cursor is loaded with that document. We're going to take it up to the top left intersection of our red bleed lines, which is actually off of our artboard, and we're going to click once. And that's going to place that image inside, however big it is, it's going to fill. If it was small, it wouldn't fill the whole artboard. It just happens to be sized perfectly because the book did it that way. But it's on our bleed lines. That way when this prints, it prints on a bigger sheet of paper, and it's cut down to a 4-inch or 4.25 by 6, and we're guaranteed that the blue bleeds off the edge of the paper. There's no white edge. That's how we achieve that with the bleed. Okay? All right, with this still selected, because it's raster art, it's not vector art, it's not shapes and lines, we now have the option to turn this into vector art using image trace. So with it selected, we go to our quick actions on the right and we see image trace, and we're going to click on that. From our options, there's a bunch, and the one that we're going to try first is a low fidelity photo. Take a look at it before you hit this button. Kind of notice that there's 1, 2, 3, there's at least 4 different colors of blue and green in the water here, and we're going to say low fidelity photo. And then we're going to let Illustrator do its magic. And that's what it would look like if it turned it into vector art. There's going to be a shape that's this color blue, stacked on top of it is a shape that's this color blue, stacked on top of that is whatever. So we may or may not like what this looks like. So from this drop-down box of preset, maybe we say, you know what, maybe we can get away with less. Maybe 6 colors is going to be enough. So we'll try the 6 color preset. So click on that, it's going to run through. How did that do as compared to the original? Not so great. Every single color option that existed, it made fit into the one of the 6 colors. So not the best.
I don't think I know that I should get this.
Pardon? Did you hit image trace at the bottom right?
Yeah.
Nope, down. Image trace. Isn't it the lower?
Is that it?
Isn't it the bottom one on the left column? Does that say?
Oh, I have 2 image traces.
Oh, that's weird. Try that lower one. Okay. Do 6 colors. That's where we are now. So that's not real good, right? We're not happy with that one. We could keep finagling around with these presets. Let's just for kicks see what line art looks like. Choose that from the drop down. Brilliant. Let's try silhouettes. Not so good. Let's go back to 6 colors, which we know is not good, but it's better. Instead of keeping any one of those presets, we can now click on this little icon to the right that says Open the Image Trace panel, and that's going to give us way more control. So with that open, I'm going to move that over here out of the way. We come with a few options. We have auto color, high color, low color, grayscale, black and white, outline. First thing that we're going to do is, I believe, I'm jumping ahead here. Yeah, we're going to try the auto color. So click on that first icon. And that said, you know what? I think I need 25 colors to make this work. Do you see how that jumped up to 25? And evidently there's 25 different shades in there. We can tweak it from here. Maybe we think that we don't really need 25. Let's try 20, so we can type that in. And then we can also twirl open this advanced area. So there's a little triangle here. We're going to click to open that. Come on. There we go. And we can change some of these other details. I'm not going to get into a lot of the information on them, but let's just change a few of these. So we have 20 colors. Paths are at 50%. Corners we're going to drop down to 25%. And then hit Tab. And then for noise, we're going to change it to 8. And then hit Tab again. And notice it's redrawing each time we do this.
So it's past 50.
50, 25, 8 pixels. You know, the book is telling us what those are, but you can see more or less corners, more or less paths, how many paths are being drawn. Just type in these numbers that the book gave us, and then we're going to close this panel using the X at the top left. The thing that you have to remember when you do image trace is that we're not done. It decided what it can do, but do you see that X across it right now? That means we're not done yet. The last step that you have to do is over here in the quick actions, you have to hit expand. That's going to take everything it thought of and actually make vector shapes of all those colors. So that's a blue background, and then they have this really big shape. Here's the thing I want you guys to think about. This is not a skinny thing of blue that they cut out both sides and laid down and then matched perfectly with this next skinny thing of light blue. This is a big shape of blue. On top of it is a slightly smaller shape of this color blue. Stacked on top of that is this next color, okay? So don't think about it like, crap, I gotta make this skinny thing and get them all to line up. It's shapes on shapes on shapes, okay? So this is now vector art. It didn't come to us that way. We got it as a ping, which is a web image, but it's now vector art. We could make this 50 feet by 50 feet and put it on the side of a barn if we wanted to, and it would be perfect. The resolution, the crispness, perfect. All right. This is now the background of our postcard, and for the moment being, we're just going to hide it. So because it's still selected, we're going to do Object, Hide. There you are. Hide Selection. It's not gone. It's just hidden at the moment. Okay. 2 more things to get through. Drawing mode. Everything we've done so far has been in the default drawing mode, but there are actually 3 different ones. So draw normal is what we always do. There's draw behind, which means that when you draw a shape, it's automatically going to the bottom of the layer stack. It's going as far behind as it can. So if you've drawn 50 things and then you realize, shoot, I should have a rectangle at the bottom of all of this, you could draw the rectangle and move it in your layer stack, or you could just go into this draw behind, draw out a rectangle, and it's automatically at the lowest stack. It's behind everything else. And then the other one is called draw inside, which is really cool, because that keeps whatever you're doing contained inside a shape that you set first. So say you have a shape of a heart, and you want to draw only inside of the heart, you have to use that draw inside mode. That way everything you do will stay inside the shape that you're targeted first. All right. Let's do a file open. We're going to work on another file for a minute, or pull something from it actually. And then go to the Map Edges Illustrator file and open that. So we're going to have a separate window of this separate file. So Map Edges is now open. I have a tab for that up here, and the postcard that we've been working on is still open. All right, with your selection tool, click to select this shape with a bounding box. And instead of dragging it to our document, we're just going to copy and paste it to our document. So we're going to do an edit copy. And then we're going to click on our postcard tab to jump back to our first document. And we're going to do an edit paste in place, not just a normal one. So edit paste in place. That's going to put it at the same location in this artboard as it was in its previous artboard. Okay? So that plopped it in there for us. Make sure that this orange map shape is selected. We have our selection tool and it's got the bounding box around it. And now at the bottom of our menu, first of all, if you have a tall skinny menu like I do, toolbar, I'm sorry, not menu, toolbar, at the top of it there are double arrows. Click on the double arrows and that's going to give you a double wide toolbar instead. And the nice thing about that is that underneath your swatch panel and your gradients, you see 3 drawing modes. Draw normal is the first one that's highlighted, draw behind is the next one, and draw inside is the final one. We want to choose draw inside, which is that third option. And when you do that, I want you to notice that you get a dashed line around the corners of your artwork. That tells you that you're in the draw inside mode. We can click away to deselect our artwork. But notice those dotted lines still exist. It's warning us that we're still in the draw inside mode. So click away to deselect, but you'll still keep those dashes. We need to go to the ellipse tool. So in your toolbar, find whatever shape tool is most recently used and find the ellipse tool underneath that. And just to show you how this draw behind works, we are going to draw an ellipse. But before we do that, look at your stroke and fill. They're based on this shape right now, so they're like a orangey yellow and a tan. We want to switch that back to the default shape and fill. So right below them, very small, you see black and white default fill shape. Click on that. That's going to go to a white fill, black stroke. All right. We're going to drag outside of our artboard, make an ellipse, and bring it inside of this map shape and let go. And see how it affects. It's only drawing inside our map. The stuff that's outside of that shape doesn't exist. If you do a Command Z to undo and draw it all inside, you would see it shows up perfect because it's all inside our artwork. Command Z, start off your artboard, come into it, and it's only going to show up where it's inside that selected art. Command Z to undo that. We don't need any ellipses. That was just to show you how it's going to behave. All right, let's do an object show all. That's going to bring back our map, right? So object show all. And we now have, I don't think you finished expanding yours because you still have the X. We'll have to see if we can work around that. But you should see, this is what it should look like. So this map shape thing is on top of our layers that are all the blue maps, right? They're all behind it right now. All right, switch to the selection tool and notice that it selects the artboard, or the blue water, the map thing that we had originally. That's what's selected. And we're going to do an edit cut. So that got rid of it. It's just in virtual memory somewhere, waiting for us to say what to do with it. We're now going to do edit, paste in place. And because we're in that draw inside mode, it all got plopped inside our shape. So we cut it from behind, pasted it inside. All right, an important thing to do after you're done drawing inside is to get yourself back to that normal drawing mode. So go to the bottom of your toolbar and switch back to the regular drawing mode, and you'll see those dotted corner lines go away. We're no longer in draw inside. All right. What if how it populated inside of that is not quite what you want? What if you wanted it to shift down a little? You wanted, because there's more blue picture, right? You kind of want to move it inside that window. We can do that because those are two separate things. The shape that it's in and the actual map itself are two separate things. All right, so with our selection tool, click to select the island artwork, which we have already. Or maybe not. Let me get away from that selection tool. Okay, there we go. So the map edges is what it actually selected. Do you see how it's got the lines around the brown part of the map edge? That's called our clipping path. And together, it and the stuff inside is the clipping group. If we look up in our properties panel, it tells us that we're working with a clip group. It's two things together behaving a certain way. All right, with that group selected, which we know we have because it says clip group right up here, we're going to click down in quick actions where it says isolate the mask. So click on that. That takes us into isolation mode. You can tell it's different because of this light gray bar up at the top here that says layer 1 and then clip group. All right, click the map artwork and we're going to drag down and to the right a little bit, and we're going to see that we were just able to shift it inside that window. So we were able to take the artwork and kind of maneuver it around. To get out of our isolation mode, we can hit the escape key on our keyboard. That makes that light gray bar up here go away. We're out of that now. We're going to click away to deselect everything, and we're going to do a file save. Yep.
So I can't get mine to come back over. Like my green.
Yeah. I'll help you at the break. Okay. Let's see, where did I leave off here? Okay, so that was draw inside. The other drawing mode is draw behind, and I told you that that like puts whatever shape you draw way behind everything at the bottom of the entire stack. So we are going to switch to the draw behind mode, which is that center one of those three modes, draw behind. And we're going to go and get our rectangle tool. So not the ellipse, but the rectangle. And we're going to draw a rectangle from our bleed points, top and bottom. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so I can see my whole artboard. I'm going to draw a rectangle from the top. Oh, look at how crooked my rectangle is. Good grief. Do something like that, but yours is going to be level because it's, whoops, normal. Let me fix that. Oh my goodness gracious. Basically, this rectangle should fill your red bleed marks, so I'm dragging mine out to make it work. All right. We're going to change the fill color of this. Right now it's white. We're going to click on our fill, and we're going to choose a tan color that is preset in here that has CMYK coordinates of 25, 25, 40, and 0. So for me, it's the third row, the first tan color. That's the one that fits the description that they want us to use. 25, 25, 40, 0. Notice, because we said draw behind, it put that whole layer of the big piece of tan all the way behind everything. Okay. All right, we want to lock that. We don't want that background piece to ever move. So we're going to lock her down. So we're going to say object, lock selection. Hey,
Just had to come say hello.
hi, how's it going? I'll just give me 1 second. This is Becky. She graduated 1.5 years ago. 2 years, yeah. Yeah.
1.5 too.
So she was sitting in here 2 years ago doing Illustrator also, 2 years ago. And now she's highly, highly employed, living a dream life of a designer.
I am.
So she's our success story.
I am one. I do consider myself.
You did do very well. So same situation you're in, sitting here going, oh dear Lord. She's a little, can I say that? A little nervous early on.
I had paralyzing fear.
She had paralyzing fear early on.
Not so much with this one, but the video one.
Yeah. Shh. Don't talk about that yet.
But I do it now still.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a little bit more and I'll talk to you, so
Okay,
hang out.
yeah.
We're almost done, folks. We are now to the finishing it up section. So here's the cool part. All the stuff that we did on Artboard 2, we're going to go and look at. So fit all in the window. Command Option 0. There's your 2 artboards. We already grouped our ship. I had us do that before we moved on because I knew it was coming, so that thing is done. So click on anything on the second artboard, and then we're going to select everything on that active artboard. So select all on the active artboard. There they all are. And we're going to do something. We're going to do an object, arrange, bring to the front. Does it look any different?
No.
Any guess why we did that?
Show first on the front.
Yeah, so they now are of our 2 artboards, our whole document, they're now the stuff that's at the top. So when we drag them over onto our map, they're going to be on top. Because they were made first, they would have been behind. So had we pulled over our red X onto this artboard, it would have gone behind and disappeared because we made it first. So by telling it all to come to the front first, we're now able to make ourselves a treasure map. So what I want you to do is grab some of these things, drag them over, and guess what? They're way too big, right? Do you remember how to transform them and keep them in proportion? What's the keyboard shortcut? Shift. So grab one of the corner pieces, pull down Shift, go ahead and get all of these elements onto your map, and when you're done, save the file. And when you're done and you've saved the file, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and do some other stuff. But we got through the whole chapter now. So get all these elements on, save the file, and we're going to be sharing them with our neighbors in just a minute. I mean, after our break. Okay? So file.